The public image of the king of the beasts is noble, magnificent, and red in tooth and claw. But behind this facade, each individual has a personal story of drama, intrigue, and tragedy. This is an alternative view of lions, an intimate tale of a pride which has fallen on hard times. In northern Tanzania, volcanic peaks surround the eighth wonder of the world, the Ngorongoro Crater. The steep walls of the crater create both a fortress and a prison for the animals that live on its floor. Even in the driest of dry seasons, the crater has enough water and grazing to nourish large herds of wildebeest and zebra. This giant crucible, brimming with prey all the year round, seems to be a paradise for lions. These are the males of the Tokitok pride, one of the 6 prides that live here. For 25 years, a record of every lion's life has been kept. It's equivalent to a century of human history. And, like some dynasties, the Tokitok pride has seen better days. Two lionesses have recently died, so now there are only 6. The researchers call the eldest survivor Wedge. She's 15 years old and has 2 cubs. For generations, the Tokitok mothers have passed this territory on to their daughters, and at 3 years of age, Bounce is the youngest. This is Wedge's only surviving daughter. The lionesses have 8 cubs between them, all fathered by these brothers, Hook and Ahab, who took over the pride a year ago. One of the other lionesses is temporarily absent, giving birth to her own family, while the 6th lioness is not accepted by the others. She's called Nimue, and she has a characteristic lump on her tail. She's Wedge's half-sister. Lionesses from neighbouring prides would kill her if she trespassed, so she lives alone as an outcast on the borders of the Tokitok territory. For some reason, the mothers are disturbed by the presence of Nimue and move their cubs farther away from her. There must be something abnormal in Nimue's behaviour that concerns Wedge and the others. The Tokitok Spring and the surrounding marsh are crucial to the survival of the pride, providing some of the best hunting grounds in the crater as well as a refuge for the cubs. They're frequently left alone from a very early age, hiding in a labyrinth of reedy tunnels, maybe for more than a day at a time, while their mothers hunt for food. Now their numbers have declined, the Tokitoks are under more pressure from their neighbours, and these are never far away. The threat comes from larger prides, with females hungry for land and males eager for more females. From the Tokitok point of view, there are just too many lions in paradise. But for the time being, Wedge and her sisters have hidden their cubs in the reeds and, unimpeded, are free to hunt along the edge of the marsh. The sisterhood is a formidable hunting team, but there are some animals that are even beyond their capabilities. The waters of Tokitok Marsh also draw in plenty of buffalo, but they're aggressive, strong, and very dangerous. There are no signs of easier prey, and with cubs to look after, Wedge and the others can't afford another day without eating, although attacking buffalo is not without risk. 2 years ago, a Tokitok female, anxious to feed her cubs, misjudged her charge and was hooked and killed on a bull's massive horns. So, faced by a large and unpredictable herd, the hunting mothers must be cautious and patient. Their luck changes. A few animals leave the safety of the herd. Wedge is the first to take the initiative. She takes the first dangerous steps alone, but she relies on her sisters to join her, and luckily they do. With the experience that comes from age, Wedge takes the lead. Out in the open, she faces being trampled and gored by the herd. With cubs relying on her, old Wedge is risking more than just her life. Young Pounce is too frightened to join in, but Wedge's oldest daughter knows what to do. Even the weight of 4 lionesses isn't enough to bring the buffalo down quickly, and the herd could retaliate at any moment. It's an exhausting struggle, but slowly the buffalo weakens. In these highly charged moments, the pride refuses to relinquish the dead buffalo, even when faced by a group of inquisitive bulls. The Tokitoks have risked so much and worked so hard for this prize that they still refuse to retreat. Buffalo often attack lions, so why they should leave the Tokitoks unscathed is puzzling. The feast attracts an unwanted guest, Nimue, but she wisely keeps her distance. If the Tokitok pride loses any more lionesses, killing buffalo would no longer be an option for them. All the lionesses are exhausted, and none of them are prepared to lose the smallest piece of meat to any scavenger. The kill becomes a focus of a great deal of aggression as different factions fight for food. It's the first time that Wedge's daughter has brought her young cubs to a kill, and they have to make their way through the hungry, frustrated jackals. The weakest cub is left behind. His immediate future looks far from secure. Temporarily abandoned by his tired mother, the weakling with the limp is in peril. However, the tiny cub's own determination and spirit carry him through his first trial of strength, and he certainly deserves his meal. Now the members of the Tokitok pride can enjoy the luxury of feeding from such a large carcass for several days and nights, and they won't be seriously hungry again for at least a week. For the moment, life looks easy for the Tokitoks, but they could be living on borrowed time. Such a small group with good hunting grounds is open to attack night or day from the bigger, stronger prides who are living right next door. The cold morning light reveals raiders. 2 males from the Laket pride have invaded the Tokitok's territory. It's up to Hook and Ahab to see them off or lose their lives. The 2 strangers move far too close for comfort. The females take no part in defending their territory against males. The intruders watch Hook and Ahab for any sign of weakness. As they come nearer, Wedge and her daughter's first priority is the safety of their cubs. Only the weakling is lagging behind again. As the invaders close in, Hook and Ahab have to roar as loud as they can, intimidating them to avoid bloodshed. This time, Wedge's daughter does come to the cubs' rescue. Hook and Ahab are in good voice, and the resolve of the Lakets weakens. As they retreat, Ahab triumphantly scent marks. This time, Hook and Ahab were successful, but how much longer can they keep intruders at bay? The Lakets and Tokitoks are evenly matched in numbers and size, but there's another crater brotherhood, which is a more deadly proposition. Known as the Mungis, this alliance consists of 4 big males who easily outnumber the Tokitok pair. Although the brothers unite in opposition, they don't always act together, and the arrival of young Bounce in heat breaks their victorious camaraderie. When it comes to mating, each male is for himself. This time, Hook wins, and for the period Bounce remains receptive, he'll follow hot on her heels. Mate with Bounce frequently for 2 or 3 days, but to no avail. She's still too young to conceive. It's unlucky for the Tokitoks, as they need to build up their numbers to counter the threat from neighbouring lionesses. For the moment, the neighbours are lying low, but they could make a bid for the Tokitok's territory at any time. While Hook is busy mating, it's a lonely time for Ahab as his contact calls go unanswered. Already the mating couple are exhausted. Totally preoccupied with each other, they don't eat for 3 days. Despite the size of the crater, it can be difficult to find a quiet corner. Elephants always have right of way. And then Hook and Bounce have to contend with buffalo. The tables are now turned, and the herd keeps the pair on the run. Life is never plain sailing. With a little peace, the mating couple can concentrate, and Hook certainly needs plenty of stamina. Cub mortality is so high that he'll have to mate hundreds of times to stand a chance of one of his cubs reaching maturity. Eight weeks pass, and the Tokitoks are weakened even further. The pressure on the pride is mounting. The January rains in the Ngorongoro Crater are well underway. At first sight, the Tokitok pride seems to be in fine form, with the cubs alive and well. And the heart of their territory, Tokitok Spring, remains in their control. But appearances are deceptive. 6 cubs have disappeared, and even worse, 2 females, including Wedge's adult daughter, are nowhere to be seen. Old Wedge and her 2 cubs, plus young Bounce, are present. And, fortunately, the missing female who left to give birth has returned to the pride with her 3 cubs. She's called TK. Hook and Ahab are still in command, but with 2 lionesses missing, presumed dead, the pride is now reduced to 3 adult females. And for Bounce and the others, still lurking on the horizon, Nimue, the outcast. Abnormal behaviour may be the reason for her rejection, and it could have been caused by disease or inbreeding, the origin of which can be traced to flies. This year, the flies are just an irritation, but in 1962, unusually long and heavy rains created a lethal plague of blood-sucking flies. Lions died, unable to hunt and covered in sores. The whole of the crater population crashed, and only 7 females and 1 male survived. Today, most of the lions in the crater are descended from those 7, and inbreeding may be a factor in the decline of the Tokitok dynasty. To regain their former glory, the Tokitoks must build up their numbers. The only way to achieve this is by raising female cubs to adulthood, which will take at least 18 months. The odds are against them. On average, 4 out of 5 cubs die before they're 1 year old. At least while they retain their greatest asset, the spring, hunting is no problem. Wedge and Bounce peer from the ridge, while TK takes the first step. Zebra are sharp-eyed, so the 3 must work in close and careful harmony. TK protects the kill for her cubs, guarding it jealously from a handful of kites. The three Tokitoks worked together to make this kill, but if they did live alone, each could feed herself just as well. The value of female cooperation in the crater is twofold: defence against neighbouring prides, plus extra protection and security for their young. If the Tokitoks remain united, maybe this time Wedge will be successful in raising her cubs to maturity. But the Tokitoks are fighting against time. And change is in the air. Hook and Ahab must keep control for at least 18 months, when the cubs will be old enough to defend themselves against other male lions. But lion cubs are also killed by hyenas, owls, eagles, jackals, pythons, buffalo, and disease. Wedge lost her only daughter, who actually made it to adulthood at the beginning of the rains. After 11 years of breeding and many litters, her efforts at raising cubs to maturity are still unrewarded. Wedge's only hope now lies with these two cubs. It's even possible that the Tokitoks have an extra, more insidious enemy. Maybe the demise of the pride has something to do with Nimue. The future for the Tokitok pride looks bleak, but events are about to take a turn for the worse. The Tokitok boundaries are breached. The Munge males have made their move. Ahab is in retreat, and he's fatally injured. The 4 Munge males have killed Ahab's brother, Hook. Now, for the first time in his life, Ahab is truly alone. Male lions in small coalitions have short, violent lives. With the Munge males in pursuit, there's nowhere for Ahab to go. His reign over the Tokitoks was brief, just a year. Now, his time has passed. The Mongi males control 4 of the 6 crater prides. Having broken the opposition of the 5th, they return to their other haunts. And Ahab faces an ignominious death. A fallen monarch of the plains. For the pride in peril, the loss of their male protectors is bad enough. But after sunset, their fortunes plummet. In the morning, Wedge and TK call for their 5 cubs. But there's no answer. Once a sanctuary, the reeds this time failed to protect the cubs, and something killed them in the dead of night. The Mongi males, the obvious suspects, were absent. So could the culprit be Nimue? If she's a cub killer, it could explain why she's not accepted by the Tokitok females. And maybe this is the abnormal behavior caused by inbreeding. As she settles down too close, Bounce goes on the offensive. It looks like the final rejection for Nimue. Wedge is now too old to have more cubs. So this loss is final and bitter. Usually, lionesses give up looking for lost cubs after a few days, but Wedge is still searching for them 3 weeks after their disappearance. Every day simply confirms that they're gone for good. As she walks around Tokitok Spring, visiting the cubs' former favorite hiding places, she looks older and more frail, but she still perseveres in her hopeless quest. As the days pass, life returns to normal for Bounce and TK, but they now have to hunt without the benefit of Wedge's experience. TK stalks forward on her own. TK has been very lucky to escape without serious injury. A day later, the final tragedy unfolds out on the plains. Wedge has died. The Tokitok pride has lost its most experienced lioness. The Tokitok dynasty has virtually collapsed. If it was hard for the pride to rear cubs before, it will be even more difficult now that there are just 2 lionesses alive. For Bounce and TK, life still goes on. 4 weeks after losing her cubs, TK comes into heat, and in the absence of any males, she flirts with Bounce, who's a little unsure of what's expected of her. Rolling in elephant dung gives Bounce an extra special scent. Hook and Ahab are dead, and the monkeys are absent, so TK advertises her presence widely. Her calls attract one of the Mungi males. But at their first meeting, she has to make sure he knows she's submissive, or he might kill her. TK and Bounce are fighting a losing battle. Even with luck on their side, they need at least 3 years to raise cubs and build up their numbers. With the threat from other prides in the crater, 3 years is just too long. And they still have to contend with Nimue. The days of glory for the Tokitoks may well be over. Sadly, it seems inevitable that Bounce and TK will be reduced to a poor living in the no-man's land between territories, while another dynasty will rise, and Tokitok Spring will echo to the calls of a new, much stronger pride of lions.